So Ambassador Arun K. Singh doesn't need any introduction. He has been India's one of the topmost diplomats, India's former ambassador to the United States. And he has an illustrious career in Indian Foreign Service, which includes many important postings and assignments. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks, Jayant. Happy to be with you.
Thank you, sir. So we are analyzing Trump 2.0. You have been following American diplomacy, American politics, American transfer of power for a very long time. So Trump 2.0 is substantially different from Trump first presidency in terms of his complete control over everything. So kindly break it down for our viewers. What does it mean? A more powerful, more authoritative, more influential Trump in White House.
No, thanks, Jan. So as you indicated, that although Trump 2.0 builds on the trends that we saw during the first tenure of President Trump, this time politically he's even stronger because at the moment the Republicans control both houses of Congress. He completely dominates the Republican Party at the moment. Anybody who dares to oppose him, they set up primary candidates against them in elections. Many of them lose, so they don't want to take him on. One indicator is that most of the priorities that he has set, the Congress has accepted that they will try and move on that basis. Also, many of the nominees that he has indicated for his cabinet are very controversial nominees. And under normal circumstances, many of them would not have been approved if you go by past experience. But this time, the Republicans in the Congress do not dare to really question or oppose those nominees. And step by step, most of them are getting through. So that's a kind of control. And also the Supreme Court, by a 6-3 split, it essentially sort of controlled by the conservative faction in the court. And they have taken many recent decisions which has supported the kind of agenda that Donald Trump is supporting, and has also, in last few decisions, strengthened Donald Trump by giving a decision that any action that the president takes during his presidential term cannot be challenged in a court, and he cannot be hauled up for that. So all that has certainly strengthened him, and that's why he's moving very quickly of trying to impose some of the policies that he has been advocating, particularly on immigration, on trade, declaring that the whole effort will be to project America first and not be supportive of other countries, the US allies whom he has indicated are sapping US resources. And if you have seen in the first set of decisions he has taken, he has stopped foreign aid for some time. He has issued an executive order asking for trade relationships to be reevaluated and for recommendations to decide what kind of measures should be taken to lower US trade deficit. And he has issued an executive order to the State Department asking them that in their work, they should focus on steps that make America stronger, make America more secure, and make Americans prosperous. And some of the earlier advocacy that US used to do on political issues, human rights issues, cultural issues, the State Department has said that it will no longer do advocacy on those issues. But I think the biggest challenge we will see is also in terms of the US domestic politics, because he has said that he will not support any more measures related to addressing the challenge of climate change. He has stopped all efforts at diversity, equity, and inclusion in the administration. Universities have stopped doing that. Corporations have stopped doing that. So we are seeing a whole new sort of mood, whole new set of policies in the United States.
Right. Sir, if we can go segment by segment, for example, in terms of mobility and migration, from so far what is happening through his executive orders and inaugural speech and rest of the things in Washington, D.C., what does it mean for Indians?
So if you saw immigration and mobility, certainly something that he's given a lot of prominence. Even in his inaugural speech on 20th January, the first item he referred to was immigration. And they've issued a set of executive orders. So we will be impacted in several ways. First, the action against illegal immigration. Now, earlier, illegal migration from India was not a major issue. but it seems to have picked up in the last some years. I saw a public report that last year, for example, 20% of those apprehended coming across illegally from the Canadian border have been, they say are Indians. Now, of course, their nationality, etc., has to be verified, but that's the perception there. Again, according to another report, there are almost 18,000 people apprehended who the US has identified as Indians and will want to deport them to India. And of course, the Indian system, the Indian government will have to verify their nationality. So that's one challenge. There are other reports that beyond this, there could be several 100,000 Indians in the US out of total Indian American population of 5.2 million who are not properly documented. So that could be a subsequent challenge. And the third area of concern would be related to the H-1B visas, because he has indicated that he could reduce the number of H-1B visas. And we'll have to see how that progresses. Although in the past, whenever they've reduced the number of H-1B visas, even then the largest share, almost 70 to 80%, has gone to Indians for the H-1B visas. But another area where he is being challenged in courts at the moment is that he has said that he'll remove the birthright citizenship. As a result, children of Indians who are H-1B visa holders, F visa holders, J visa holders, even if they are born in the US, would not become US citizens. So unless this executive order is overturned by a court, that could be another challenge. So I think there would be implications for Indian nationals, for India, but we'll have to work our way through it.
What about the trade issues, sir? Because tariff is one of the most talked about word in English dictionary by Trump. He says it's the most beautiful word in an English dictionary. What does it mean for India, sir? The trade ties between the two countries.
Well, not only that, does he say it's a beautiful word, many people in his administration have now said that tariffs can and should be weaponized. In the past, Trump has said India is the tariff king. His former trade representative, Bob Lighthizer, in his book, No Trade is Free, has devoted significant segment to the difficulties he faced in the trade relationship with India. So we can expect that after they've done their evaluation of the various trade relationships and how the US should look at lowering its deficit. And India is among the top 10 countries with which US has a trade deficit. Although, deficit with India at about $40 billion is way below their deficit with China, which is about $350 billion. But still, it has come under focus. So I'm sure after that, they will expect that perhaps tariffs on US products should be lowered. And so we'll have to see that if they want more market access, what is the kind of reciprocal market access we should try and get. But what encourages me is that in his executive order, he has said that not only should US look at doing bilateral trade agreements, but also look at doing sectoral trade agreements. Now that can create opportunity for us. Because, between India and the US, now we have an initiative on critical and emerging technologies. And we have to see how the Trump administration takes that forward. But within that, the whole idea was that you work on co-development of technology. Based on co-development of technology, you do production sharing. And based on production sharing, you look at sectoral trading arrangements. And in the area of semiconductors, where many announcements were made by US companies for investment in India after the ICIT initiative was launched, in March 2023, our Ministry of Commerce and the US Department of Commerce had done a sectoral MOU related to semiconductors. So I think we could perhaps explore the advantage to India of doing sectoral trading arrangements in areas where we have some competitive advantage and in areas where US and Indian industry are heavily integrated. And that would signal to Trump and the administration that there is a benefit in the trading relationship with India instead of just taking a hard line on tariffs.
So will the India-US relationship remain one of the most consequential relationships of the century as we have been talking about it under Trump 2.0?
No, I think so. Because if you saw, for example, at the inauguration, they invited the foreign ministers of the Quad countries. And so that was a signal that they attach importance to the relationship with India, they attach importance to relationship with Quad. In fact, the new Secretary of State, Rubio, the first meeting he did after being sworn in was a meeting of the Quad foreign ministers. And then, of course, he had a bilateral meeting with the Indian Foreign Minister. The new National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, and Secretary of State Rubio are people who have been heavily invested in India relationship in the past. Mike Waltz was the co-chair of the India Caucus. He wrote several articles calling for strengthening of the relationship. In fact, in one article, he called for building a relationship almost like that of an alliance. Secretary of State Rubio himself, as a senator, had moved a resolution in the US Senate calling for deepening of the defense partnership between India and the US, and had expressed understanding for some of India's compulsions related to what was happening in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So we have key people, and if Tulsi Gabbard is confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, again, a person who had been supportive of the India relationship. And President Trump himself, despite his criticism related to trade or his talk of America first, I think in the past he's had a good working relationship with the Indian Prime Minister. If you saw, he had gone to the Howdy Modi rally in 2019, where there were 50,000 Indian Americans. Very unusual for a sitting US president to go to a rally for a visiting foreign leader, and that too outside Washington. And then he had come to India in February 2020, and he had a good visit. He was welcomed by a crowd of 100,000 people in Ahmedabad. So he himself, despite some of the criticism that he does, has engaged positively with Indian Americans in the US, with India, with the Indian Prime Minister. So I think there is enough basis to expect that the relationship will continue to advance. But there's another reason. There are advantages for both in the bilateral relationship. But even more important, both see China as a major challenge. And the US sees China as the main technological challenge. And to deal with that, they need a partnership with India, with the tech human capital of India. So I think that would provide another convergence.
Thank you so much, sir. As always, a pleasure talking to you, Ambassador.
Thanks, Jan.
Thank you so much.
Happy to be with you.
Thank you.